So where are you calling us? Where are you calling us from, Brian?
I'm here in Cincinnati, well, technically Covington, Kentucky.
So like that's right by it.
Yeah, right across the river there.
Because
You
that's
never moved from there?
No.
Interesting.
I've only met
Born in Atlanta, but raised up here.
two wrestlers from Kentucky. You and Ricochet.
Yeah, and Alex Zane too.
Do you know when at a very early age? Do you know who your roommate was?
My roommate?
Yeah, you had a roommate at a very early age.
No, who was it?
Triple H.
Oh yeah.
Right, bro. Get all of this story. So I was hanging out with Hunter in '95 when he was sitting on his no compete clause. Okay, at between he had just finished WCW and he was getting ready to start a WWF for like 4 months.
Okay.
So the period of time that we would go work out, go eat sushi, come thing like the wrestler guys coming up in the business or hanging out with each other,
yeah.
right? But at the time, he was living with Brian's wife, and Brian Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now that adds up to something that I was told.
Yeah, so Brian Pillman was like keeping, had Hunter like staying with him, because
my mom always told me that he changed my diapers, but I thought that was just her talking shit, That's probably true as hell.
I could absolutely confirm that story. You
Nice.
were living with Triple H, so that's the thing. So Triple H knows that he's like, that you're out there like that. I could see like kind of like a reunion someday, like a special moment, like the kid.
Yeah.
Right. You're like the surrogate father, you're there. Right?
Yeah.
You guys hug.
Brian, were you too young to remember when you met me and Ray at your dad's?
No, that's one of my biggest memories. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably remember that the most out of any of those shows. I remember I did the entrance with the Hardy Boys, and then I remember wrestling around with you and Ray.
Right. Now, it's kind of funny to me because I like one of the first non-Mexicans that I ever saw do lucha was Owen Hart, and then the second one was Brian Pillman, and he was a huge fan. I don't know if you even knew this or if you even know who this guy is, but when I first got to WCW, he was like a big fan of this wrestler called Super Astro. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I think so. I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of Super Astro.
Before,
yeah, I'm a big fan of Super Astro, and Super Astro was one of the guys, he was from Tijuana, so like he trained Ray and he helped train me, and I was showing him like all these moves that Super Astro would do, and I remember some of the wrestlers, specifically Lex Luger, hated lucha, and he was kind of burying and he was kind of burying like lucha and Pillman wanting to do lucha, and I don't think I've ever told you this. Jim Ross wanted to put me and Pillman together as a tag team.
That would have been dope.
Yeah. And then I ended up going to WWE. But man, real cool. Dad, how hard has it been? Because I know Court for a long time didn't want you kind of imitating Brian and having to do your own style. How hard was that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard when you got a lot of different people telling you a lot of different things. So I would always just go back to the things that Lance taught me on how to be a standout performer in all three fronts, whether it's, athleticism or promo or just looking the part. I just tried to focus on improving in those three and figuring out what was easiest and best for me and that I was good at. And then, whatever natural, any natural comparisons people can make, they can make, but I definitely never tried to be any imitation or try to follow some specific mold, always just tried to be myself. And I think in today's business, it's easier than ever to stand out because everybody else is kind of, copying this or doing that or trying to revive this or revive that,
Well, that's very good. That's very good. Let me just say this. That is very good, Brian, that at such an early age, you understand that, because that is one of the biggest problems we have. Everybody sees something else work, so they just copy it. They try to do a variety. And when you're very different, you just stand out. What were you going to say, D.I.?
Let me ask you this. So when you figured that you were going to start wrestling, and this was definitely going to be what you're going to do and stuff.
And well, before you continue, what do you think of Lance Storm being his teacher? Any heat?
Well, Lance has probably taught a lot of. He's taught a lot of good guys.
Well, I was hoping
girls,
but go ahead.
Well, Lance, I'm sure Lance is a good teacher. But probably not. Lance is probably Lance is a good teacher.
You just went Colby Covington on that interview with that black chick and just went completely out of character. We have buried Lance Storm forever on this show. Why stop now?
Okay, I've buried Lance Storm because he buried me.
Right.
And he's on the disco list. Okay,
right.
But I can't compromise my integrity and lie that I think Lance Storm would be a great guy to teach because the guy's OCD. He's like very strong. That's why he has these camps that take a certain amount of time. And like he teaches it's like very regimented and stuff, which is actually probably not a bad way to train professional wrestlers. Just have camps, have however many weeks be, and just everybody pays and you have everybody there. It's like very structured because that's the way Lance was, and that would act like in an environment like that, it's probably a lot easier for people to learn to school on a structured basis as opposed to these days. Wrestling schools are very flippant with their times and who's training you that day, just who shows up and what are you going to teach. It's like it's very so yeah. I would say Lance is probably a very good trainer. That's what I would think he'd be good at. But here's what I'll ask you: when you thought I'm going to be a professional wrestler, and Lance is teaching you how to stick out and stuff and all that. Obviously, it's a lot easier today than it was back in the day. We to study, we had to get the videotapes.
Yeah.
These days, YouTube's out there. It's very simple to study this craft, and you gravitate to what you like. When you were growing up in this business, two questions: who did you like? Like, who were you a fan of? And when you started training, who were you studying?
I want to say those are two different things, because my fandom when I was younger is going to be a lot different than because I took a break. I took such a long break from being exposed to the business. With all the bitterness and stuff that came with it. I didn't start getting back into watching wrestling until I was about 22, 23 when I started getting into it, and then started being But when I was a kid, I loved the Hardy Boys. I loved Chris Jericho. I loved Benoit. And then when I got older and started actually studying the business, I was looking at more of the modern guys like Cody and those guys, and then again with Jericho, and just kind of seeing that evolution of how how somebody could take their career and constantly keep changing and changing and changing and changing. So I guess the biggest theme that I've tried to at least pervade in my career is just to constantly evolve and think of new ideas, come up with new looks. My dad did it. He went from Flying Brian, and then he went and did this, loose cannon stuff. But he was always, there was all those in-between spots he did. He was the Hollywood Blondes. He was with Sync. So you're never in one place is what, my theme of it is.
So let me tell you a story. So your dad, when he was in the process of becoming the loose cannon, okay, we would go down to Disney, and we do the TV tapings at Disney. We'd be there 10 days, so you stay at the Ramada, the Renaissance Inn and stuff. And I think he'd probably bring you down there and throw you in the pool and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
You play around and stuff. Right? Yeah.
Bro, the Renaissance Inn. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember this, Brian. It was incredible. It's like a condominium that they had given you for the whole fucking week.
Yeah.
It had a stove and a refrigerator.
Right.
Huh?
Your dad was fascinated that he could just take the kids to the pool and just sit there late at the pool, watch you guys play for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Like, this is perfect. I mean, when he was down there, when he was doing the loose cannon, Chris Canyon would drive from Atlanta. So Pillman, I think our rooms were right next to each other. Me, Canyons, and Pillman's were right next to each other. And Canyon would have the VCR set up with his collection of tapes. So Brian, I think we had VCRs in the room back then and everything. Your dad was was just totally enthralled with Piper. Like, I told him, when I got into wrestling, I was watching Piper. I said, hey, watch some of Piper's stuff. The way you watch Piper and the way he was animated, like the way your dad was like when he was doing the loose cannon. He was studying in Orlando because we were doing the TV tapings every day. So he was testing all this stuff out. How am I going to work it? Just acting like a crazy guy out there, but he was like Piper, and that's where the loose cannon stuff from your dad started. Is he got in a rabbit hole one day and just would sit there? He'd sit in his room and just watch hours of Roddy Piper tapes, and then just go and take it. So it was but that was Piper from 10 years earlier. This is Piper 95, 96. He was older and stuff, but that was your dad's loose cannon character.
Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
When you said that for a while, you left the business because you were bitter. What were you just bitter about? Over your dad's death, or what were you bitter about?
Well, yeah, I guess I was more or less conditioned, by whoever was raising me at the time, to stay away from the business. It's bad for you. It's drugs, it's all this and stuff. So it wasn't so much me being bitter. How old? You can't be that young and already be bitter at something, but it was definitely like a sour grapes, feeling that, oh, this business killed my father. It must have a bad effect on me.